Hey friends, it's Yolanda. So I'm finally getting a chance to do this video. I did the poll on Instagram last week and I asked who would be interested in my pregnancy journey, and many of you said you would be. So I thought I would just do it. Like I said, I have been taking like little clips and pictures along the way. So this will be a compilation of that. So I'll be chit-chatting a bit and then I'll have some videos and things. I'm very ambitious. I need to figure out this whole editing business, but I'm very ambitious right now. So as many of you may figured out, that I did IVF. I'm a new mother. My baby is 5 weeks this week, and I did IVF. For those of you who don't know, IVF is intravenous something. I should have looked at the proper name, but it's IVF. What it is basically is that they take my eggs, they take your partner's sperm or your donor sperm, inseminate it, fertilize it, and you grow embryos. And when those are done and ready, you get inseminated. They impregnate you. So theoretically, my doctor made me pregnant. But so backstory, I got really sick, really sick in 2011. I was hospitalized. We were living in Ohio at the time. I ended up being hospitalized in Riverside. I had a blood clot. I had a DVT. I know the definition for this one, a deep vein thrombosis in my left groin. Now, I didn't even know I had it. I had no signs, I had no symptoms, I didn't know I had it. Just all of a sudden, my leg started swelling and it got red and it just wouldn't stop hurting. I went to the emergency room and from there they transferred me straight to, I want to say Riverside is like a heart hospital. I could be wrong, but I ended up there where I had this emergency surgery and they put in a stent. It kind of looks like an octopus, really. I have it somewhere, but because we moved, everything is everywhere. But they put that in there and in my vein, my main vein, and the purpose for that was to stop the blood clots from traveling and possibly getting a pulmonary embolism. And that can kill you. So I had that done. I ended up being in ICU for like 2 weeks or so. So it was back and forth with what was the reason or how I got it. First, I had a protein S and C deficiency. I went to cardiologists, I went to oncologists, I went to hematologists. But I mean, as time went on, me with my nosiness and digging, and all the doctors and specialists, they say that I had it or got it because of my birth control. Yay me, I'm the 1 in 100,000 people. But I was using NuvaRing, and apparently at the time I had endometriosis, which I didn't know. And the endometriosis and all that estrogen, boom, I get a blood clot. So ever since then, I've had like some health issues in regards to my reproductives. I've had fibroids and cysts and all of that stuff. So that really, I think, for me, opened up Pandora's box, is what had happened. So from there, that's 2011, time goes on, I get fibroids here and there, they get removed, like vacuum sucked. Not a big deal. Come 2014, I started cramping again. Like my periods just seemed to get worse over time. They were just getting worse. And I said to the doctor, like, I feel like they're getting worse. I feel like the older I get, they're getting worse. And they're like, oh no, there's nothing wrong. So back and forth. I changed my gynecologist. I ended up seeing a guy in Ohio, so sweet, so nice. And I told him my symptoms, and it seemed like every time when it was approaching my cycle, I would get a UTI. And I'd go to the clinic, take a test, it was negative, but I had all the symptoms of a UTI. And drinking cranberry juice, like losing my mind, but nothing was happening. And he said, I think you might might have endometriosis. However, I would have to do like a surgery to see it. He said it's one of those things that you have to see. Now, if you don't know, endometriosis is one of those things. I call the endometriosis like the weeds. You know how you have this nice, beautiful, flourishing garden, and then you have the weeds that just come and destroy it. So there I was with my nice, beautiful uterus, and then this endometriosis just came and like just destroyed it. So that was the first time I heard of it. So I started researching, and honestly, you can get it in your uterus, you can get it in your stomach, like, but it's most commonly known like in your reproductives, as a woman in your reproductives. And you can have different stages of it, you know, like from not so bad to like, oh my gosh, horribly bad. And so I was like, okay, so we'll see. And he said if it gets worse, that's what would have to happen, is that I'd have to have the surgery so we can figure out what's going on. So I fast forward 14, my cramps were so bad, so horrible. It was like I couldn't sleep, I couldn't anything. I ended up going to the doctor again, and he did an ultrasound, and it turned out that I had a cyst. Okay, fine, a cyst. They said they'll monitor it. If it gets any bigger, any faster, we'll have to remove it, things like that. So this cyst was growing, but it really bothered me, honestly, when it was that time of the month, was when it bothered me the most. Any other time it was okay. It was uncomfortable, but it was manageable. And then it just kept growing and growing, and the pain was like out of control. And he ended up sending me to an oncologist because he said it kind of looked funny. Go to the oncologist, they did some testings, thank goodness it was benign, but this thing just went from 0 to 100, and they were like, we have to do surgery, we have to do surgery. I was not too keen on doing surgery at the time because I was by myself. Blake was deployed, and when he was coming home, we were moving. So the last thing I wanted to do, based off of my history and my previous surgeries, I did not want to have a surgery and then be moving from to a different state in the middle of a recovery. So I was just like, oh, I'll bear the pain, give me pain meds, I'll bear the pain, I'll be okay, I'll figure it out. So Blake comes home, we move from Ohio to Georgia. When I get to Georgia, I get a new hematologist, because at this point I'm on blood thinners and all of these things because of the blood clot. So we moved to Georgia, and I see a new hematologist, and he's like, you got to get it out. He's like, you got to get it out, it's way too big, it's getting bigger. And he referred me to an oncologist, and then within a couple months of being in Georgia, I had to have the surgery. So I got admitted, have the surgery, and the oncologist kept on saying that, you know, there's a possibility that I'd have to take out your ovary. There's a possibility. And I was like, oh, okay. And I didn't think too much of it. Surgery comes, yeah. So he takes out my left ovary and my left tube. So apparently the cyst was so enormous that it damaged those things. Take it out. So they take that out. I'm in hospital a week. I go home, I recover. Everything's good and dandy. I go back to my OBGYN, and then it's like, okay, so how are you? Where are you with the whole baby thing? He's like, because obviously we're down to one ovary now, and you're getting up there in age, so let's see what we can do. Okay, fine. We were back and forth with it because Blake was in the field a lot. For those of you who know, for those of you who don't know, Blake's in the military, and in the field is like he would go away for work. So he would be gone 3 weeks out of a month at a time, and he would come home for a week. Sometimes he'd come home for a weekend, and it was kind of really hard trying to get pregnant with your partner not being there. So we were just like, oh, you know, fine. So we were trying, but not, because we weren't using any kind of contraceptives or whatever. It's not like we were preventing it at all. But it just wasn't working. It just wasn't working. It wasn't going. This is 2015. And I go back to the OB, and like he asks me, and then he was like, okay, so once your husband's home for longer periods of time, you have to start actively trying. And if it gets to a point where you've been actively trying for so long and it doesn't work, then we'll take the next steps. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So it so happened that it got to that point, Blake was home for longer periods. And we were actively trying. Nothing. Now, mind you, at this point, I just have the one tube and the one ovary. And he suggested doing an HSG test, which is a dye test. So the dye test is to see if my fallopian tube on my right side was opened. Maybe there was a blockage, to see if that was opened. So we do that test, everything's clear. We're all excited, like, oh, okay, that's clear, so there's a possibility. And still, going on, not trying to prevent anything. A whole year goes by, nothing. Okay, so then he suggests doing IUI. Now, IUI is a few steps before IVF. So what they do is you take hormones that stimulate your ovaries, and you produce eggs, and like more eggs than you would usually. And when this whole stimulation is going on, then you would do timed intercourse, and like everything will kind of be scheduled to make sure that when you're ovulating, this is what's going to happen, and this is how it's going to happen. And so we tried the whole timed intercourse business. No, that didn't work out. So IUI was the next step, where you do the same thing. You stimulate your ovaries, but then they will take the specimen from your partner, do something called washing it. They'll take that, they'll wash it, and then they'll put it in this tube. And then they don't inseminate it into your uterus, but they do release it closer to your uterus, so it actually will work naturally. So it would go and flow as naturally as a specimen would be if you were having intercourse. So they do that, and that doesn't work. And now, like, I'm panicking, and I'm like, and I mean, when you're stressed out and you're worried, things don't work out, you know. So it's like, okay, relax yourself. Don't be so stressed out. It's going to work out. It's okay. Your tube is open. It should be fine. You ovulating. That's perfect. So I tried Clomid. It's a hormone called Clomid, and it's supposed to stimulate your ovaries and things. That thing made me so cranky. Oh my gosh. I don't know. I didn't know if I was coming or going. I was so emotional. I was so cranky. I was just... it's just in a bad mood. But I was taking it. I was still taking it. And then I want to say I was doing like 5-day pills, because it was an oral tablet. And then you would do a trigger shot. So this trigger shot, you do it in your belly. So it's supposed to trigger everything. It's supposed to like waken up. It's supposed to wake up everything and tell your brain to tell your body that, hey, there's eggs going on, there's specimens, semens going on, do your job. Meet each other halfway and do your job and impregnate this girl. As my mother would say, dololo. That means nothing. Dead end. Okay, and with insurance, there's only so many tries you can get, because insurance will pay for IUI. At least our insurance did. They will pay for the IUI. And that's why I was like so hopeful that would work, because that on its own is, you know, a few $100 to a couple $1,000. And the Clomid was taken care of by insurance, which was fantastic. Didn't work. So Blake went back to the field, took another break. I was just emotionally drained. I was emotionally exhausted. I was like, I'm just not doing this anymore. So that was that. And then time to move again. It's time to move again from Georgia to New York. And I was like, okay, new city. We'll start afresh. We'll find a new clinic, and, you know, get all my papers transferred, and this is going to work out great. So we get here in 2018, And I had found this clinic. One of my friends that I went to school with told me about it. Found the clinic. We got here August. Made an appointment. Oh, I think he's waking up. Okay, we'll have to put this on pause. Baby's waking up. Go get some tea and some biscuits or something.